what function is the most perfectionistic function? Now, of course, if we were to take this sentence literally, it would not make sense because sentences are not people. But you understand what I mean. You know, what type, understood by way of the dominant function, is the most likely to be perfectionistic because of the kind of dominant function that they possess. An easy answer to this, a facile answer to this, would be the typical, well, you know, there's any number of ways that you can define the word perfection, and depending on what you mean by perfectionism, any type can be perfectionistic. Okay, that's true, but it's not really bringing us kind of very far. So perhaps what we could try to do to begin with is to just use the ordinary sort of folk understanding of what being a perfectionist means, right? We all have like an implicit kind of know-how based, experience-based notion of what it means to be perfectionistic. To be perfectionistic is essentially to not be able to stop with a particular project until the final result, the output, is a purified version of what one wanted, what one had in mind, right? It's like a perfectionist is someone who has a very, very acute sensitivity to very, very, very minor flaws and blemishes. I mean, this is essentially what a perfectionist is. Someone who's not a perfectionist is the good enough kind of person, right? For a perfectionist, good enough is not good enough. For a non-perfectionist, good enough is good enough, right? So you see these folk ways of making sense of the word perfectionist work quite well. And I want to say, if you refer back to my framework for understanding personality as a network, as a structural network of fundamental and the subsidiary fantasies, you know, a structure of fantasy, basically unconscious fantasy, the answer to what type is the most perfectionistic, it has to be a type whose core fantasy has to do, or at least entails, getting rid of blemishes, getting rid of imperfections, right? A fascination, unconscious certainly, sometimes conscious, but mostly unconscious, with purity, with cleanliness, with symmetry, with like transparency, okay? That's the fundamental fantasy of cleansing, is the fundamental fantasy of purification. We have a function with this exact kind of narrative attached to it. It's the TI function. Superego function, primarily, which, depending on whether you find it associated with fantasies of unlimited seeing or rather with unlimited feeding, so that's to say more associated with an INTP type or an ISTP kind of type, of course you'd have different modulations of this perfectionism, of this cleansing. Often we are used to hearing that, at least so far as our online communities are concerned, because I'm pretty sure in external reality this is not exactly how things work out. But we're used to thinking, well, INTPs are perfectionistic with regards to their logical frameworks that they build, okay? That's because their fancy of cleansing is mostly expressed through seeing, a kind of abstract seeing. They want to see the world without blemishes. They want to understand, therefore, the world without blemishes, okay? That's the TI of the INTP. The TI of the ISTP is, again, if we were to speak in the pure sort of primitive language, cipher, full language of early fantasies, it's like this joining together of a fantasy of cleansing with a fantasy of unlimited feeding, it's like I want to be able to buy into the world in the most effective way possible. I want to be able to be in touch with the world. I want to be able to be held by the world in the most kind of bumpless, without bumps, right? Like without any kind of hurdles. I want to be able to have the most purified form of raw interaction with the world. Okay, and I think that often how this translates is in not always the case, of course, because NI and ISTPs can be quite developed, but if we imagine that SE really has pride of place among the functions of perception, you could easily imagine that the perfectionism of the ISTP is going to be more physical, something more bodily, something that has to do with physical experience, right? So it's like you see a lot of ISTPs in extreme sports where there's this desire to find ever more intense forms of being fed by the world, right? Using a wingsuit, kind of skydiving with a parachute, these kinds of things. But also a kind of fascination with coming up with techniques for guaranteeing that the experience will be the rawest possible. There is a lot of thinking that goes into this, and you see the fantasy of purification here. Whereas you could easily imagine an SETI kind of person as being a bit more immediate, right? It's like maybe less delaying of the gratification of feeding than in the case of the TISE person. Still purification, but a purification and a perfection of the physical, of the body in relationship to the world, right? Being perfectionistic in regard to one's embodiment, rather than being perfectionistic in relation to one's abstract understanding of the world, rather in an INTP way. And so that's how you get the two different modulations. It might be worth saying that there is a perfectionism that you see a lot in the case of the FI dominant. It's very different. The FI dominant is not moved by a fantasy of purification, but there is sometimes reference to moral purity in the case of the FI dominant. And what I think this means is that because the core fantasy of an FI dominant is emotional containment, they are very, very aware of what is contained within them in terms of this emotional safeguard, such that if they were to engage in creative works, for example, and they want what they contain to be shown, to be represented, it's not going to be that easy, because they are the only ones who have this singular, like almost visceral knowledge of what it is that they contain. And so their perfectionism is about really managing to express what they have been keeping inside, and therefore kind of away from others' eyes, in a sense away from even their own eyes as observers of something external, because what they have is internal. And they will only be content to finish the work when that translation has been successful, and it could take a long time. Guys, before I move on, just want to mention that at the link below, first link below is my Patreon page. I'd be so grateful if you supported me. You know that I need your support. It makes a huge difference to me. It's not expensive. It's only a few euros or dollars a month or a year. In return, you get access to really cool perks, like a whole library of exclusive videos, long format videos, where I discuss topics usually, you know, that the patrons suggest I discuss, NI and utopias, new view of INFPs, magic, mysticism, all sorts of topics. It's a big library. And you also get access to our Discord server to hang out with us on a daily basis. We have a cool community. Hope to see you there. And just to mention, give me a like as well. It helps with the referencing, so really appreciate the like. And these two books on the INFJ, the Ecstatic Soul, which is all about the internal world of the INFJ, a new look at the INFJ personality, and the Infinite Soul, which is all about the external world of the INFJ life in the modern world, which is all about finding meaning, purpose, and value in a world that we often see as hostile, as NI dominant. These two books are companions of each other. They go well together. If you want a deep understanding of this beautiful type, you should definitely get them. They're available below. Thank you guys. See you soon.